Hey everyone, sorry, just starting now. Had to get things set up, was running a little bit late. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and start. I see people are here. We have today, for feedback, we have AJ and we have Shari. So we will start. We've got some cool stuff, so let me go ahead and transition over to my screen share. Hey Shari, hey AJ. Okay, cool. So AJ, let me just look through notes real quick. Awesome. So we have reference and blocking. Cool. Ref blocking. And you mentioned that you were struggling with the camera. Something with the pan doesn't feel right. So cool. So let me go ahead and take a look here. Let me watch through.
I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday morning.
Nice.
I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday morning.
Nice, yeah, I like the new reference. I like this deadpan moment of her looking like up, down, up. Not full blocking though, cool. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is...
I love this too, I love your animatic that you've kind of boarded out here.
I'm sorry, and if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating...
I like this pose, which is heartburn. Heartburn? I love that gesture and kind of the idea of that posing that you're going to be going for. I think that's really fun.
I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecap.
And I like that, radiating in my kneecap. It's kind of fun. I like that gesture. And I like how you've kind of taken stuff from your reference and already pushed it in some thumbnailing and stuff. So that's, I think this is definitely what I would go for. More I love how you're already thinking about that, getting this really squashed, down and really curved spine. I think that's going to be fun.
Consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since...
The only thing I would say, watching this reference through it, I like everything, and especially the combo of the two, your ref and kind of pushing it you're already doing in your thumbnails here and your animatic. I think those are good. The only part that I get a little worried about is this onward.
I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday.
I just feel very disconnected from her in the audience from at this point, just because of the way that she's turned. She's not quite a profile, but she's not 3/4 either. So it just kind of feels disconnected. It's a little bit of an awkward angle, which obviously you can fix once you start getting it into Maya, but
kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday morning.
And I kind of like this original ref here that you have with her for this last part.
Kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since my kneecaps, and consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump.
You know what I might do is because right now I'm just thinking of watching the two references versus your sketches too. What I might do instead, because I know why you're turning this way is you want to have different, otherwise she's just acting this way the entire time, right? She's looking this way the entire time for the whole shot. So having her abruptly turn this way, I know why you're trying to do it is she needs to kind of turn and just have some variation in there. But at the same time, I wonder if we could do that a little bit earlier and then get to when she says and, because I love this. She's already in my kneecaps here. I'm looking at this reference. And she kind of leads with that head. I really love that little moment. I think that'd be cool if you could use that somehow. And
kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since...
And then I love the ref from here.
Wednesday morning.
I love how she kind of juts out the head and accents with the shoulders. I think that's fun. So if you could keep that. So maybe what I might do if this was my shot.
Heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps. I have heartburn that is radiating.
When she says radiating, because you already have this, movement, so this would change a little bit from like what you have in your boards already. But she's like, if I were to act it out, like,
I'm sorry, and if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps.
So when she says radiating, that's a big enough of like a push, and also you have already like the idea of a gesture here.
Heartburn that is
radiating. You could just turn that. So if she's here and she's like, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecap, so she could just use that to turn, so that way you're getting that variation of like her going somewhere else, and then radiating my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump, and then she goes into the other screen. I think that feels like a little more natural when I think about acting it out, of like having her just turn like screen right,
radiating my knee.
Like here. That is, and she could be, still in this, kind of pose that you have here, right? She's still here, facing this way, screen left.
Radiating my.
And then instead of just going forward like this, I think you could just have her radiating, like turn to the other side, or I guess technically it'd be here, like radiating in my kneecaps, and then she could turn back in. I just feel like that'd be a little bit more of like a natural flow of how she would be moving, because right now it just feels like I mentioned, like the disconnect at the end, like all of a sudden she's turning just to turn, like it doesn't feel motivated. And if you could turn turn the body on those accents in the dialogue, I think it would help a lot and make it feel like it flows together a little bit better.
Radiating.
So here she would go from this to like, and like kind of swoop into it, like lead with the head or something interesting, like an interesting transition.
Radiating.
And basically just having this but reversed, right? So maybe she's this way. Just an option. Good. Yes, so I was contemplating whether I should go for the reference at the end part, and that's why I kept it. Yeah, I do like her performance a bit better, and like the face. I love the idea. Like either way you could go with it. My personal preference is I really love like that deadpan at the end. Like she's literally trying to think. I'll get into that in a second. Like having her here basically is like this idea. And then when here, and she could still be in this, right? That same body pose. She's here. And then she just goes into this. And then it's more like a head accent. She's like, radiating in my kneecaps. And I haven't taken a dump. And then she like goes that way, right? So I think that would be fun.
I haven't taken a dump. And I haven't taken a dump.
Because also too, like just looking at your reference here, something to keep in mind, like you're like, and like this gesture with the hands is very like masculine of how like you're gesturing, which is, it's going to be different when different people shoot reference. So having maybe a little bit more like, and like have the hands a little bit more up or something, doing a little more feminine. Or I think even like her, what she's doing here, just like, and like dropping the hands is kind of funny too, and that could be a fun way to play it.
And I haven't taken a dump.
This just doesn't feel like, and I haven't taken a dump. Like it feels just a little like she's holding like an imaginary beach ball or something. Like it's a little too wide, open hands. Do something maybe just like a bit more feminine, a bit more dainty with the hand instead of like a wider hand pose. I think would help.
And I haven't taken a dump in my kneecaps. And I haven't taken it.
Like I like in this reference how she kind of goes, and I haven't taken it. You could do something. You could push that a little bit more so that it's almost in frame. And she's like, and I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday morning. Like I think that could be fun to possibly like amp up just that like I don't care attitude, instead of, because right now like the gesture that you're doing here, it feels like she's like trying to contemplate two things. Like that's what that gesture reads to me, of like, and this and that, like it's kind of what it feels like, so it doesn't really feel connected to the dialogue. And I kind of like the idea of having a bit more like just careless arms of like, and what she does in the reference here.
And I haven't taken a dump since.
And I can't see, like, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that in your shot once you get to the framing, but I almost like the fact, like, the idea that maybe, like, she's, like, doing this. Well, if I stand up, maybe she's doing, like, this with her hands or something. I don't know, something with, like, her hands flared out, if that ends up being in your framing once you get it into Maya, but.
And I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday morning.
Yeah, and I'm not, like, There's just really something about this reference. I keep going over and over about it, but like I love the way that she just kind of like zones out. I think that's a really fun way to play this shot, and I'm not sure if like this feels like gaggy, like gimmicky, and like this feels very actorly. I don't know if that's a word, but it just feels like a oh no, like generic motion, which, you know, generic motions can work in some circumstances always. That's why they're generic, because they're used a lot for a specific reason. But I really do like the idea of this. And if you wanted to have it a bit more of like, oh no, like I would try to do something else with the hands that wasn't like, oh no, like cover her mouth, just to be different and just to have it a little bit more specificity to it instead of just a more generic acting move.
Morning.
And also too, like one of my favorite parts of this dialogue is at the end. She's like, Wednesday morning. I like she kind of trails off, and like there's like a diphthong in her voice when she goes morning. And like I love that. And I hate to cover that up because that'd be kind of a fun thing to animate. Like Wednesday morning. Like, you know, you can have the jaw open just to really emphasize almost like a bit more than's even there. Just because stuff like that is what really makes the character feel alive and sound real, when you get to find those little like breaths or those weird little noises that aren't words, that aren't dialogue, that you can really add in there to make them feel, layer on top to make them feel more real. So
Wednesday morning.
And I like the idea too, from like an acting, like internal dialogue perspective, of her not making eye contact. 'Cause like in your reference, like you make eye contact.
Morning.
You make eye contact with her, with the customer, or, you know, whoever's sitting at the table at the end, and that just makes it feel a little like, oh no, like looking right at it. It just, again, it feels a little gimmicky, and I kind of like the idea of leaving it, trying to figure out as the audience what she's thinking about, right? Because she just went in this whole like spiel, and at the end, kind of the fun part about leaving her just like staring out to the void is because we're leaving her in that moment of like that internal dialogue that she's going through of all these things that have gone wrong, and it makes you wonder, what is she going to say next? What is going to happen next? This feels like finality, like, oh no, ending pose, wait for the next person to start their line. That's what it feels like. And it's more fun to like land on an ending that makes the audience guess and makes the viewer be like, oh, what would happen after that? Or they immediately start imagining like, oh, well, she would do this after that, or what would she say after that? That's always a good note to leave on with your shots, is to kind of make it feel like it's part of a sequence and like lead to like what's more. Make them feel alive, like they're thinking through the scene, right?
Consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating to my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a... And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is... I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating to my kneecaps, and I haven't taken... I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is... I'm sorry. And if it is any...
And I would go a little bit... Sorry, I realized I was just watching that over and over for a long time silently. But my brain's a little bit offline today. But here, I like the idea of like... Obviously, it's your animatic, so you don't have everything in there. It's not fully animated.
Sorry, if it is...
Simplifying. I like this. Like, especially here, how you're going to have her go like that. I'm sorry, right? I like that idea of like, you know, her getting into this. Also, my brush just went to like very small. Oh, I have pin pressure again. Wow, amazing. Sing Sketch was nice to me today. But, there's a lot going on in your reference from here to here. It's like here you go to like this hand shape, and then there's like bounces, and then it goes to this. So I would just try to simplify that a little bit more, since you are going for a little bit more of like a cartoony style of, especially what I'm seeing you're leaning towards in your animatic. I think it would be nice to simplify that. Because here, if it is any, like she goes, sorry, you can't see me, but if she's like here, and like, if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiant. Just think of like simplifying those hand gestures, so that way it just doesn't feel like too chattery with the hands and too messy. Make sure that they have intention behind each gesture, and it's not gesturing just to gesture. Which sometimes we do that whenever we're flustered or nervous. We could, you know, be doing things with our hands, but that has to be intentional. And I think here it would just be a little bit better to simplify it and let body language speak for that nervousness instead of more, hand gestures to try to relate that across.
I'm sorry, and if it is any consolation, I have heartburn.
And you could almost do, because right now I think the biggest thing I'm seeing is just the hand pose changes. Because right now she's like, I'm sorry, and if it is any, that's just a lot. So I wonder if it could be almost those same beats of like the pulses. Like, if it is any, like she could do that. She could gesture in a hand pose with, if that makes sense, like without trying to make it more complicated than it is. I think that you could still use some of that from your reference just to emphasize certain points in the dialogue, but just to simplify it a bit overall. But yeah, I think that'd be my main notes for like all the reference. I think what you have is good. Like if you want to, you could reshoot just to see if you can get all of these things together, but I think you have a good spot from your animatic and blending some of the reference together and just keeping in mind that you are going to be simplifying things in it. I think this could work. But yeah, if you wanted to shoot another pass just to try to get, that's something that I like to do, but I'm a little like perfectionistic when it comes to my reference. I like to see if I can get it all in one take because I hate zombie-ing, Frankensteining my reference. So it's nice if you could get it all in one take, but if not, tons of people work like that where you just Frankenstein it together, and that works too. And if I'm in a rush, sometimes I do that, but for me it's easier in my own head to choreograph my reference because I was a dancer, so I'm like, oh, this is just a dance. So I go through and like choreograph of what I'm going to do or things I want to change to just see if I can get at least something close to everything that I want in one reference, right? So either works. But also I just saw that you have this in here too. Oh, nice. Oh, that's right, yes. I remember that I saw this earlier.
I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating to my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday morning.
Okay, so this is the one that, yeah, you were saying you were having issues like the pan. And actually, there's a sketch here already because I had Daniel look at it because he's in previs right now doing lots of cameras. And I'm not great with camera work. So I was like, hey, could you take a look at this? But basically, to summarize like what he was saying that I agree with now that I've heard it explained. But basically, the pan is like too complicated right now with the camera move. It's like, you don't need translates. Because right now it feels like the rotates are kind of offset from each other and there's some translation back. And honestly, I think all that you need for that is just a simple, the camera's here, right? This is a point of view camera. It's down and then it's just going to go whoop and rotate up. Think of it as like someone's head because that's specifically what it is the viewer right now is the audience, or the viewer right now is the customer, right? Eating or showing the food. So their head's down, it's just going to rotate up. So you're really just focusing on that X rotation of the head's down, looking at it, and looking up. And like you mentioned, you were kind of wanting to go for like a more Wes Anderson like style or like something stylistic, and that's cool to be able to do that. But I would say like one of my biggest things of advice is don't worry about cameras unless you want to be the cameraman, unless you really want to get into cinematography and that's your goal for this assignment. The camera just needs to tell a story, and as long as it's just simple, you're showing what you need to show, it'll be fine. And I wouldn't get too worried about trying to be stylistic with the camera, but just focus on your animation. And honestly, I think for this, unless you were doing a whole sequence and you wanted to get, when I think Wes Anderson, I think like a straight on, like orthographic view, top down of this, and then cutting to her, and then showing a napkin, and then going back. So like that's not what you want to do. So I would really try to simplify it and just have it as a simple pan of like, you're looking at the food and then whoop, and then it goes up, and that's it. I think that's all you need, and I think that will solve a lot of, because like I just feel lots of like rotations going on, and then it's translating back, and yeah. And what Daniel just said, he said the most important thing is that the camera doesn't stick out because you're trying to showcase animation. Yeah, because I've seen that before in people's shots of, you see someone shot or they're real and they have a really good animation, but the camera, you can tell that they are not comfortable animating cameras, and it totally like just takes you out of the shot because you're thinking, oh, this camera's weird, or it's even making their animation look messed up because the camera is not smooth, or it's not doing what it should, or it's not the right principles of, previs or cameras or all that. So just try to simplify it, and I think it'll be a lot better in the long run for you, because then you're not having to fight with the camera too, because that's something that happens too. That during this, you're not having any major moves or any major animation that you have to do while the camera's moving, but sometimes if you're trying to do some fancy camera move and you're trying to animate on top of that, it can just be a pain. And so yeah, that would be my recommendation, like what Dan said. Just like keep it simple, make it a simple pan up, take any translations out, all that. Yes, Daniel should be doing this critique. I'm reading what he said now. Frame up both the food and Aya in your ideal compositions without translating the camera, just rotate X. Yep. Yeah, so maybe it's not a super hard, top-down angle. Maybe, the food ends up being like this, right? A little bit more perspective of like this way. And, Aya's hands, if you end up having them, are here. Oh, that's a beautiful hand pose, wow. But beautiful hand drawing. But, maybe it is something like this. Something just a little bit more perspective to it instead of being like top-down. That could work too. And let me just I know you said blocking super rough, so I won't give you super in-depth like facial posing or stuff, but I'll just give you like ideas of things that I would keep in mind as you start blocking it out more.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And if if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating to my kneecaps. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating to my kneecaps. And I'm sorry. Sorry. If it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is...
Just one thing I would say, like, just watching through, it's kind of hard to tell yet because obviously, like, there's not a ton of info in here yet, especially with Aya, but I would just make sure that once you start blocking in more, that you're not cutting off at a weird place with her. Like, this is good, you're kind of cutting off at, like, the bust area, which is fine. When she's here, just be worried, like, the only thing I'm worried about is, like, that she's going to be riding this, like, line cutting off at frame right at her hips, and that can sometimes be kind of like an awkward place to cut off of. Usually if you want to cut off, like a little bit higher than that, or here, like usually you don't want to cut off right here. Just kind of like making sure that it's not cutting off at an angle where you need to see. Also sometimes like it can be a little bit difficult when you're doing a shot like this. It's nice to be able to show the hips for a mechanics aspect, just to show a little bit more of like she's moving around and stuff like that. And that
I'm sorry, and if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating to my kneecaps. That is radiating to my kneecaps, and I haven't taken it.
I kind of do like the idea, like, I don't know if you did this intentionally or not, but of her, like, the whole time she's like, sorry expression and like mouth downturned and everything. But then she's like, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and like that could be kind of fun, is to play that up. It's like like she's kind of losing it, like she's about on the edge of losing her mind. I kind of like that idea. That could be something fun to play around with.
Is radiating in my kneecaps, and
it could be fun too, is like have that be her expression change on that nice beat when she says, and she's be radiating in my kneecaps, and then she goes into the next thing. Like, that could be kind of a fun thing to play.
I haven't taken it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps.
And yeah, just basically the same thing here. Like, I think...
Consolation, I have heartburn that is...
You already have, like, a nice antic here. Like, I have heartburn that is... Or she's here. I have heartburn that is... radiating in my kneecap, so that would make it easy since you're having her kind of come up right here, like 181, right? She's coming up, and you could go down into the side with this pose, right? And literally just flip it, and just have her like swoop down and around, so we like that, because she's coming from here, right? And then basically she's just going to swoop down and around. And then her body's going to go the other way. So you're going to have like a nice counter. And I think that could be a fun motion too.
Radiating my kneecaps. And I
And then, you know, here afterwards, and like I talked about in like the reference, and you have her just go the other way, and I think that will make a really nice like contrast between everything. But yeah, I think that would be my main notes. Let me make sure. Oh, this is just the
consolation. I have heartburn that is...
Yeah. So honestly, I think that would be my notes for you all together, is just like some of the reference. Maybe if you feel like it, shoot another take of it, see if you can get everything that you want within one, you know, take. If not, Frankensteining is always good. Like, you can do that, and just keep that in mind that you want to simplify actions once you get into Maya and start really blocking things out more. Yeah, and the biggest thing too is the camera pan. All of Daniel's advice is super good about making sure the camera doesn't stick out. Simplify the camera, simplify the actions. So much of animation is just simplifying. So I think that would be my main note. Just like overall, just simplify some gestures, make the camera simple. That way you can just focus on the animation, but still get the same effect that you're wanting storytelling wise, right? So I think that would be my main notes for you. Do you have any questions or anything? It's looking good. I love what you're doing with it so far, and I really love like to see once you start to get the poses in, like really polished. It's gonna be fun to see stuff like this in it.
I have heartburn radiating my kneecaps.
But yeah, I think that'd be my main note. So awesome job! I can't wait to see it all blocked out and starting to get some life into Aya. Will be fun. But yeah, awesome, cool. Okay, so next we have Shari. Let me just check, see what your notes were. Cool. Oh, you said you started sketching the animatic before the ref. I've done that too sometimes. It depends. I'm very much a ref heavy animator. I know some people that just thumbnail, you know, and like can animate basically that just with that and very little reference at all, if any. I wish I was that person because I feel like it would be faster, but I've gotten like a groove with shooting reference that's kind of become my thing. But if I'm doing a character, like just the other day, like I was trying to figure out posing for a character that was this little tiny short squatty baby and like I'm a tall lanky bean so like it was really hard to try to figure out like what, because like the arms are way shorter than what my arms are, so sketching it out helped a lot because I was able to like do some quick sketches and be able to kind of figure out, even though they were bad, like I could in my own head I knew what I was going for, and it helped me kind of figure out like base, where do the arms go, would they fit, would they do that, would that look cute for that character in those proportions, because proportions change a lot about how you pose. So that's definitely become part of my workflow, is if I have a character that I'm not similar to at all and I really need to find like a golden key pose, then I'll do some sketches or stuff like that. But if you have the ability to be able to do that, like I wish I was fast enough at drawing that I could do that, because I love that idea of being able to sketch things out real quick and then shoot reference based on like, oh, here's some few poses I want to hit, because that helps you a lot. Because I usually just do that in my head, but it would be nice to be able to sketch it down on paper to be able to show other people. But yeah, that's an awesome skill to have, so for sure. And yeah, you're welcome for... Cool. Okay. So next we have Shari. Cool. Working on half the shot. I think Jules is still a bit stiff coming up. Ignore the faces. Okay. Cool. Okay, let me take a look.
Holy cow, this is your room?
Nice. I just noticed all the stuff in the background. I watched this like an hour ago when I saw it come through, and I was like, was all this stuff in the background here? And like I could not remember for the life of me so I actually had to go back and look. I was like, okay, it wasn't. It made me laugh though. I was like, that pluses the shot. It's funny. And it sounds good, AJ. I can't wait to see it.
Holy cow, this is your room?
Nice, this is looking really good. And like you said that Jules feels stiff, and I see there are some like moments where he does feel like he could be broken up a little bit more in the spine, but he looks really good, like especially just the progress wise from last time, especially this like feels really nice to me now. Like he feels loose and he feels like he's broken up a bit more and doesn't feel as stiff to me, so good job on that. It looks cool.
Wow, this is your room? Holy this is your room?
Kind of just a picky note here, but something that caught my eye. Watch his neck here. Sorry, not there. My brain is not working. Here. On this head turn, it just feels like there's a lot of neck motion, like neck rotating, and no rotation, like a sympathetic motion from the chest. And I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more, like just a little bit of like rotate Y and Z in the chest, just to kind of get that feeling that's connected. And right now he just kind of feels like a Barbie doll, like the head like is moving on top of the neck. Yeah, so like here, right, this is fine with like the chest. But then as this turns, like I'd want to see a little bit of, that's the arm. This is a bad example, but basically like you start to see a little bit of the front of that chest because there's just a little bit more of like rotate Y. It's not just here, but you just have a little bit of that rotation. That way it feels like it's connected to the head and it's not just like the head moving on top of the neck. Because that does make him feel like a little bit stiff to me. And then once you get into it, this is more of a polishing thing. Once you get like Aya completely done and Jules' body's feeling really good, just watch out for these feet. Just tracking those arc and making sure they're just really clean. Because right now there's like, especially I'm looking at like this foot, it like comes here and like hits a wall at like 30 and then kind of comes in and then it feels like it comes out again. Like this feels good here, like watching like the tip of the foot, like it goes up and then it goes down in a nice arc. And you know, even here, like I might point the foot down a little bit, right? Like have it come down instead of like going out just ever so slightly again and feeling like it hits a wall.
Holy cow, this is your room?
Watching Aya's hips here. You have a nice, like she comes over this way, which is nice, and then eases out, it comes here, but then it feels like at 39, this hip hits a wall and then just kind of like goes down. I would love to see just like a little bit more like easing out of that translate X and like coming over. Right, she's like here and just having it come a little bit over. I drew that way too far down, but basically just going whoom. Just like circling it a bit, or I'm not circling, arcing it a little bit more will help. Because right now it does stick out to me, like when I watch it at speed, it just feels like she has this nice boom, boom, boom. Like she just kind of is easing. Every time she goes steps screen right, she eases nice, but then every time she steps screen left, it feels like she just kind of like hits a wall. So I would just go in and try to like smooth that out, that arc out a little bit, and like that translation X, just to make sure that she's feeling like her weight's being taken and she's not just hitting a wall with those hips. Because also you can infer that she's picking up that leg, and right now she's not far enough over this leg in order for her to be able to pick up this leg. So she needs to come over just a little bit, that way she can pick it up. And I know it's a quick pickup, so maybe you don't even have her over as much as I drew here, but just something to show that she's picking up that leg and that her weight can work. Because right now just the weight isn't working over top. You know, and then when she does this, like, this is good, having her come back over this way, so.
Holy
So now this is a tricky note here because you kind of want her to be locked onto him, right? Because she's like watching him like with this creepy smile, like like putting him down and like watching his reaction. But the only thing I would say is like Aya feels a bit stiff to me. When she puts him down, she feels like she's kind of like, if you ever seen like a water, like a tipping bird, like that just kind of go over and down. That's kind of what she feels like. She's just kind of like pivoting from her hips and like tipping over with everything feeling kind of locked, which obviously she's going to have some tension because she's holding him and, you know, dropping him down. So her strength is being used, so her muscles are a little bit tense. But I would just maybe play around with, you know, getting something like this with the hips, like maybe having the hips come over a little bit, or this. Honestly, it might even just be a matter of dragging the head a little bit, right? I might try that before I try anything too crazy with the torso. You know, maybe the head just comes this way, like your rotate Z. You just have a bit of that. You know, especially right here, like that rotation. Could be nice if it was like here. This might be too much again, but just play around with it and see if you can just get a little bit of like breaking that up, of just trying to break something up. If it's not the hips and the torso and the head. I couldn't think of the word for head. I was about to say chest. I'm like, no, the chest and the head, basically, like breaking that up will help a lot, I think. And then when she puts him down, you know, even through here, she could still, I know you're trying to still show her, but it might be, you know, here she might still be a little bit, if you could, like, get her head a little bit over here, possibly. You know, maybe it's still dragging at this point. These are just suggestions. I'm not sure like what will look good in motion, especially since you're having to deal with like silhouette of him and her kind of passing at the same time, but you just want to try to show as much of her face as you can, but both of their face. I'm just wondering if you drag the head a little bit more, if you could maybe clear some of the space so we at least see her eyes. That could be kind of nice. You know, her eyes are still here. And then by here, like her head could go back to this, and you could start dragging the other way a little bit, right? So maybe, obviously you don't want her head to feel like floppy, but just breaking it up a little bit so that way it feels a little bit more organic and not like she's, you know, wearing a neck brace or anything. So yeah, maybe something like this, just rotation, like just really amp up that rotate Z a bit more just to make it feel a little bit more loose. Yeah, especially right here with Aya.
Holy cow, this is your room? Holy cow.
Yeah, and especially with here, right now the same thing. I feel like the torso feels like a block that's just like going, like rotating this way and this way. It'd just be nice if she could have like a little bit more fluidity. You know, if you could kind of get those hips up maybe just a few frames sooner. And you know, this is an extreme example, but getting something like that and then having the body up, you know, just if you're thinking of behind it, almost something like this. Just something to like really break up that head, torso, head, chest, hips.
Your room? Holy cow, this is your room?
Then watching Jules.
Holy cow, this is your room? Holy cow, this is your room? This is your room? Cow, this is your room?
I think the biggest thing here with this walk with Jules, and Jules is difficult. I've always had issues with like his hips personally whenever I've done a shot with Jules. of making them feel like they take weight, because it's kind of hard, like his rotations are kind of weirdly weighted. But if you could just get a little bit more of like, you know, here he's picking up that foot, right? So if they're a bit more here. Yeah, they are tiny. It's like his, compared to his chest and like his legs, they just go straight in. Like it's so frustrating to try to animate and get good posing with him. You know, when he's taking weight here, right now, this is when he's really taking the weight, right? So having them come down. Yeah, in the middle here should be more of like a neutral. And then here, like they, I mean, it's hard to show, but like they should go a bit more this way when he takes weight on that leg. Also watch out, I'm feeling like the hips are hitting the wall here too. You know, like here.
This is your room?
You know, that's too far, but basically I would have them overshoot a little bit because the steps are so fast. Right now it just feels like boom, boom, boom. And then he feels like he just hits a wall. So if there's a way you could get those hips to overshoot a little bit over the standing leg and then settle, I think it would be really nice to be able just to get that feeling of the hips are taking the weight and then he's like overshooting it a little bit and settling back into like that standing pose.
Your room? This is your room?
Here, right now, you're having him lean over this way, which is good because that's, you know, a little bit of an antic for him to be able to pick up that screen right leg. But I feel like the hips need a little bit of involvement too. Like the hips need to come over this way. So maybe he's like, comes this way a little bit in order to pick up that foot. That's probably too much what I drew because now he's off balance, but hopefully you get the idea of like he just comes a little bit over that hip and like there's a little bit of movement and transacts and then he takes the step. So you're just getting a little bit of an antic before he takes the step to make it feel like the weight's there.
This is your room? Holy cow, this is your room? Holy.
If there's a way, I'd see if you could sculpt this spine a little bit to get a little bit more like that as he comes down. Because right now it just kind of feels like his bottom is the only thing like rotating and it's kind of creating like this. So it kind of feels like it's like sticking his bum out. But just as they rotate down, getting a little bit of that. And then when he sinks into this, he could almost start to do like a reversal. Right? So if they're here, like the back, still here. And then as soon as he takes the weight, this is when you start to get a little bit of that bum coming out of like a reversal of the spine. You might have to back off both ways in terms of it, like not feeling like it's going like a piece of taffy, but it just might be a nice way to show. Why is there not tenting on? It might be a nice way to show that you know, his hips are taking the weight after she drops them. It's like, you know, rounded back, and then as soon as like his feet plant the floor and he's on his own and like she's not supporting him anymore, showing that reversal of the spine will help show that like he's taking the weight, and then it's going to go over and reverse again. So this is extreme, but I'm just trying something out. Let's see. We'll see how that looks. Yeah. So just like finessing this like reversal of the spine and like dragging that chest a little bit more than what you are, I think will help a lot. Basically, it's just through right here that like it just needs to be a little bit more flexible and like his dragging this top part of like his chest up and then down will help a lot. Make it just loosen him up a bit and make him feel a little bit more organic. Like, and one thing too that I would do for this part, when you get into like, you know, the spine is pretty much final, I'd add some translate Y with like his IK chest control. Just translate Y, like up and down to squash and stretch it. Just that way he goes like boom, like, and he squishes and then he comes up and like stretches out. That's one of my favorite things to do is like, when I start to get towards end spline, starting to get into polish, I like to add that in. Or if I'm doing a full mechanic shot like this, sometimes I do add it in my pretty soon after my blocking or in my blocking. So just keep that in mind. That'll add a lot to like really squish him down, like holy cow, and then he like stretches.
Oh, this is your room? Holy cow, this is your room?
With the hands here, I delay the rotations. So they're here, right? I'd keep them here, close to the chest, still like he's like this with them. I'd reverse them even here. Maybe they start peeling off his chest. And also that'll get rid of this lock that you have here. See, the hands just kind of lock and then like they pop and come back. Even this one, I honestly might. Delete that by a little bit more even. They updated Sync Sketch and it's so nice now. So nice to be able to actually like have an eraser that works. Yeah, that might be a little too like soft with his hands, but no, it's not. I would do that. I think like just really like dragging them, like pinning them, like showing that the chest, like his hands are just kind of like there. They're just kind of a prop at this point. He's not really, there's no tension in them. He's not really doing anything besides like they're just kind of there by gravity against his chest, and then he falls and it's almost like his chest, his hands don't weigh as much as his chest, and his chest is being pushed down and has more momentum to come down. So his hands are going to get pushed against his chest until they catch up to it, and then they're going to, you know, basically overlap. So you're like having that successive breaking of joints, but through the chest, through the hands, basically. And just breaking up those arms so that way they're coming down and then back up.
Holy cow, this is your room?
And same thing with the hands here with him. Like literally the same principle of you know, they're starting to rotate down this way. here, I literally might have them like way down. Like I might even almost like smear them at one point just to get a really good feeling, like whew, like because he's like whipping them up with his body. And then here they can start to come up. And then they can start to come up here.
Cow, this is your room? Cow, this is your room?
Yeah, just see how that like breaks it up a little bit more. And that way they just don't feel like he's like can't move at all with his, that way it doesn't feel like you just put them in IK, constrain them together and that's it. Like that way you just feel like you're having like some separation with the hands and just a little bit more like specificity of how they're moving, and it's not just as a unit, they're moving just as this like one blocky prop, but you're just breaking them up a little bit to feel a little bit more organic, a little more alive.
Holy cow, this is your room? Holy cow, this is your room?
Also, I feel a little bit like I was just about to say I really like the head, like what you did with it, like dragging it when he comes down and then back up again. But I would say that this rotate X here, that it starts to kick in, this feels just a little bit like it's 3 frames too late. So I feel like the rotate X should start happening here. And then this should, about here, should be like, you know, where your max is. And the head almost, the head hits a wall here. So just make sure that it's coming back. Also, thank you so much, Danish Skelt, for the subscription. That's awesome. We appreciate it. We appreciate you guys. It's crazy. Like we just became Twitch affiliates or whatnot, so that way we could open up like subs and stuff like a week ago, and a bunch of people already have, and it's like, oh, support. Thank you guys so much. Oh, thank you. We appreciate it. We love being able to like give feedback and stuff. So, okay, let's see. So yeah, for here, I would just like bring that neck, like overshoot that head just a little bit. I'm not drawing this at all at the right times. Yeah, definitely not the right timing of this, but just maybe like finessing that rotate wide just a little bit more too. Let's see.
Cow, this is your room? Cow, this is your cow.
Yeah, so maybe like here, right? We have this rotation of the head. Ba 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 ba. Oh, that's a lot of sketches, Madison. Okay. I must have an infinite like ghosting on or something. Something's going on. Oh, also, thank you so much. Another sub. We really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. So here it needs to come back a little bit more. These are really rough, but basically it's like, what I'm trying to say is have that head come back a little bit more with like the rotate X of the neck and the head, just to be able to almost overshoot just a bit. You don't want them to feel squishy. You don't want like a super crazy head, but just have a little bit back, a little bit more back, just that way it feels like it flows. Because right now it just feels like it kind of goes, holy cow, and then it just like turns that way. Also, both my wrists just popped right when I did that right to the mic. But yeah, just having it rotate again, the same feeling, don't make it feel like it's like pivoting on top of the spine, but more of just, it's a little bit more organic and connected.
Holy cow, this is your room? Holy cow, this is your room?
But yeah, I think that would be my main notes for this. I know you said like you're still working on the other section too, and you have notes for that, so I don't want to give you too crazy many notes, but it's looking good. It's just now about like getting in there and doing the fun polishy things of, you know, finessing arcs, going in and just kind of breaking up parts of the body that need to be broken up a little bit more, like hands, torso, head, stuff like that. But yeah, I think once you get all that going, you're going to be in a good spot. Yeah, and I can't wait to see the rest of it.
Cow, this is your room? Holy
Also random, but is this floating? It doesn't look like it's on the wall. I just noticed when I was looking up, I was like, what is that? But, and she grabs it there, so just, that might be an issue because she's also touching the door, so just be careful.
Holy cow, this is your room?
But yeah, awesome.
Cow, this is your room?
Cool, do you have any questions or anything, Shari, before I
Holy
close this
is your
out?
room?
Oh, all good, all good. I happened to see it. I was like, oh no, because I've done that before where I haven't noticed that I've like moved a prop and then I animated to that camera angle with that prop with another prop behind, and then you have to like either reanimate one or the other, and it's not a good time for anyone involved. Let me see, wondering if the inhale feels rushed. Let me see.
Holy cow, this is
I'm
your
gonna have my sketches for a minute because I've made an absolute mess.
Cow, this is your room? Cow, this is your room? Cow, this is your room?
Okay, here's my thing. I don't think the inhale feels rushed. And I can't tell because obviously it cuts off here, but I feel like it's too even of a rotation. Like he feels like, this is your room? Like it feels almost like robotic. It feels like, so I would quick into it. Like he goes, like almost like there's no antic to it and he just goes straight back. So instead of it being the linear curve, really like stretching out that, waiting out that bottom of that rotation. And then going fast into this, if that makes sense. Because right now this just feels like very even rotation. So just spending more time down and then a quick inhale will help, I think. Because I don't think it feels too rushed as much as it just feels like the timing's a bit off of the rotation. But I can't really tell until I can see like the whole thing together. Because obviously it cuts off, but that would be my guess.
Cow, this is your room? Holy cow, this is your room?
One thing I might do now that I'm looking at the inhale too, it could possibly be too rushed, and I don't want to give you too much like notes on this before like I see like the whole inhale and like the timing of that afterwards. But it could be worth playing around with rotating down before you rotate up. So basically like he'll go like that. And so instead of it just going like up this way, it'll be like he just almost like antics with that head like down and then up. I think that could be a fun way to like break it up because right now it does feel like even and just everything's like rotating back at the same time. So either like the head rotates back first or it's the chest is rotating back first but the head's almost like dragging a little bit, but so it's going down up, but then the chest is what's like going up and pushing the head down, and then the head's coming up to like finish the inhale. I think that could be something fun to try and just see. That could be a quick fix just to try it out, see if it works. If not, don't do it. But that could also help with the feeling that I'm getting of like it all being even because it is kind of feels like everything's moving as a unit at the same time with like the head and the chest. And that's what just feels even to me, not necessarily rushed, but just even. So breaking that up, I think it actually could even be like snappier. So cool. Yeah, you're welcome. I've just given a lot of feedback. That's it. And yeah, I remember you being like at my first daily Shari. I think you were at the first one I ever did. But yeah, so now I've been doing dailies for like a year. I did an AM for a while, and then Channel Box happened, and that's why I've been doing it here. I love giving feedback though. It's difficult sometimes because you have to see animation in a different way, and like if you're not used to giving feedback, it's so difficult to like just jump in and give it. Like even me, if I haven't given someone notes for like a week and then someone asks me for notes, I'm like, okay, how do I have to like remember how to give notes and how to talk through things or even draw it if I'm not live with someone. It's always difficult, but it probably helps. I was a piano teacher for like 4 years. I went to college for piano education, so I was a teacher in my past life as a piano performer. So maybe that's why I'm used to teaching and going through and giving notes about stuff and critiques and all that. So I don't know. Little fun fact about Madison. Let's see. Pratham asked, question if you have any words of wisdom for someone going from AN03 to AN04 next term. Thanks. Really enjoying your guys' streams. Cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, that's awesome. So for AN03 to AN04, the biggest thing that I would say for AM is take the time to, one, if you're on a break, take a break. Don't animate for a while. Like, take a break, go outside, see nature, live a life so that way you can animate life. That's kind of my big takeaway. But in more terms of, like, actual helpful Maya advice, I would say that I would definitely learn basics, because the biggest issue about class 4 with AM is it moves fast, and it's basically just crash course of, okay, surprise, it's time to learn about how to animate an entire face and character, and you're still trying to remember body mechanics, and it's a lot. So one of my biggest things that I wish AM would do, I think would be really good for the students, but do a blink. Take one day. It's only do shots that you can do in like a day, maybe 2. But take something and say, okay, like once you get to Sean Sexton's class in class 6, he teaches everyone how to do a 13 frame vanilla blink. And it's like the ultimate blink that you can scale to make a short blink, make a quick blink, you can make it a long blink, but basically it's just how you do a blink. And he talks about like shark fin blinks of, you have, this for your closing and then your opening, like you have something different. And it's a shark fin either way. And so it's learning about that, and there's some good demos on the AM resources that you can go and like. I think there's one with blinks that like talks about something similar to Sean's, but not exactly. But there's also good YouTube tutorials about it. I would do blinks. I would study mouth shapes. That's a good thing to do. Do an exercise where you're just learning like how do eyebrows work, right? Just do like a facial expression change. Go from happy to sad, and just see like how different parts of the face work. Another cool thing, if you have enough time and like there's a long, yes, the Jason Martinson one about shark fin blinks, yeah, it's awesome. I forgot about that lecture, but I think it's still in the resources, and that is an awesome lecture that's kind of similar. I think John's is a little bit different, but it's very similar, and it's a good one. So blinks are really important. Yeah, practice facial poses. That's always a good thing to do. Big thing too is mouth shapes. Practice mouth shapes. That's something, learning how to get appeal, learning just what controls do what on a face, especially if you've never worked with a facial rig before. It's really important just to get familiar with it. I remember when I was in class 4, they have you do like a facial pose, like for the first 4 weeks, I think, while you're doing your pantomime in addition to your pantomime. But on my own time, I would do like 20 poses a week, like just facial poses, just throw away. Like I don't think I even have any of them anymore. Like I don't think I'd even save my Maya file. I would just sit there and just pose. I would just find reference images on Pinterest of stuff I would never post because it wasn't my poses, but I'd be like, I'm going to copy this pose. Or what's also a great exercise is like frame through Tangled, honestly, and go through and find like, because Tangled's a good one just because it's ridiculously good animation, as Sin would say, the best animation out there. But use Tangled, frame through like Rapunzel's poses that she has on her face, and like find a really appealing pose that you like, and just try to mimic it on, Aya or any other facial rig that you have currently. That's a good one. Tangled's good if you're doing specific, not Tangled, I just said Tangled. Tangled, but Frozen is good, specifically if you're doing Aya, because she's very similar facial shape to Anna and Elsa. So that's a good one to go through, frame through. And I knew someone that was in class 6 that like went through and literally would like copy poses from Frozen for like the facial poses, just so that way it matched so well and she got the really appealing stuff out of it. So that's a really good idea, just to go through and learn how to pose the face appealingly in different aspects, because a lot of times you can't get that from your facial reference and in your reference video. You can't get a lot of facial performance out of it. Sometimes you can, or if you're someone with a crazy face, like sometimes I pick up a lot of stuff from my video reference with my face, because I have an elastic face and I go crazy. But sometimes it's hard to get something, especially with subtle stuff. I really struggle with getting subtle stuff with my own face because I kind of lock into one expression. So that's a really good thing, is just studying animation and studying different how does Disney make appealing happy poses on their characters, and find the common thread of like, okay, the eyelids always kind of have this relative shape, or they're always making the cheeks like this, like something like that. And just studying and observing helps a ton, because you don't really have time to do that in class 4. Class 4 is just such a crash course. I wish that I would have spent more time either before or even during, if I had the time to do it, to just study faces, study animation of how faces work, and practice it by copying it on your own. Obviously don't steal work, but it is a really good practice. And that's exactly what it is. It's practice. It's not necessarily stuff to be like, hey, I animated this shot with all these stolen facial poses that I just copied from somewhere else. That's obviously, don't do that. But it is a good idea to practice it for your own self and just on your personal time, and just think of it as throwaway work and practice it. Yes, lie, cheat, and steal. that is the artist and animator guide. Lie, cheat, and steal your way through animation. But it is true, like just learning how, because it's appealing for a reason, right? And Disney animators will pose that way for a certain reason, because it's the most appealing way you can get a character to look happy or sad, or just studying that helps a lot. And yeah, getting yourself familiar with a facial rig is important. Just playing around with it, seeing what the different controls do. Blink practice. That's something that you can do quick, something you can do in a day, and you'll learn a lot just from doing it. Do a couple if you want, do it 1 week, and then if you have time between the 2 classes, do it 1 week, and then maybe another week try to do it better. Just pushing yourself to do it better, and just getting familiar overall with how faces work is super important. So yeah, and I think that's something we've even talked about with like doing a demo on the stream in the near future. Of we joke about, me, Sin, and Dan joke about that we never knew how to do eyebrows until like a year and a half after graduating AM. We never knew how to animate eyebrows. I learned a little sooner because Sin and Dan taught me, because they knew before I knew. But it's stuff like that you just don't know. So the earlier you can get a head start on knowing that stuff and just getting familiar with how the face works and how the individual parts of the face work to make it all work together, the better you'll be in the long run. So that's something that you can just research too, and just stuff to keep in mind going forward. And think of the face as individual bits. Like, how do the eyebrows work? How does the eye mask work? They talk about that, but like eyebrows have a very specific way of like offsetting your TX of the brows and offsetting your TY of the brows to make like an arc, whenever they come up or down. Like, that's important. And we've talked about possibly doing like a demo about that. Like, hey, blinks. We're going to talk about blinks and how we animate blinks. Or I know Cynthia was talking about she wants to do one like eyebrows. Like, I'm going to do a whole demo lecture about eyebrows on the stream. So that's something to keep in mind for the future. And if enough people like really want it, like, we can fast track it maybe and come up with something, because I know if I was a student, I want to hear what Sin has to say about eyebrows or stuff about animating the face, because you learn so much by even hearing other animators. Even if you already kind of know the general gist of how to do it, you learn a lot by just listening to other animators. And just kind of, that's the cool part about streams, and something we wanted to do with the streams is basically replicate in a little ways, because I know with me, I'm definitely not a mentor, but just being able to like animate over someone's shoulder and watch them how they do different things helps so much. And I did that after AM. I watched like Sin and Dan animate and how they did different things, and it made me such a better animator just because you learn stuff just by watching people work. So that's kind of what we wanted to replicate this way a little bit, just being able to do demos live and be able to have people ask questions live, because that's also a big part of it. You can watch a ton of AM resources, videos, or YouTube demos and lectures about different animation principles, but it's a whole different ballgame to be able to actually ask live questions, or, you know, be able to have access to someone where you can ask them your questions live and not just have to figure it out for yourself. So yeah, that's just kind of what we're wanting to do here, a little thing. But yeah, I think a demo would be super cool, and we definitely want to do it. I know it's on the list of stuff we want to do, but it's just finding time to do it. I also saw someone else. Let me check out the chat. Any advice to learn and have confidence when giving feedback? Feedback to me is kind of just miles on the pencil, if you want to use like an old school term. It's basically just doing it over and over, because it's super intimidating to give feedback, especially if you feel like, I remember when I was like in some of the earlier classes at AM, even the later classes at AM, I would see people that were so good, and I was like, I don't want to give them feedback because they're way better than me. But one of the jokes I make all the time is I was like, my family is like my best feedback people. Like my mom and dad like don't know much at all about animation, but I can show them a shot. I say, hey, what's your feedback for this? And you know, they have no qualms saying like, this looks weird to me, but I don't know why. Or they're like, why is she doing that? Or like, why did she blink weird here? Like they know the overall grand scheme of things. And sometimes like even people that aren't animators give you better feedback because they're not thinking about the animation technical side of things. They're just saying point blank like, hey, that looks weird, or I don't understand this, or that looks cool, or they can kind of give you a gauge of stuff. So never feel bad about giving people feedback because it's always valuable. Obviously there can be times, as long as you're not egotistical about it and you're not giving a huge dump of notes to someone that doesn't want it, but just be kind and just practice giving feedback. And I always try to make what I call like my feedback sandwich of like, find something that's like good or something that you appreciate about the shot, say that thing, because that's always, obviously don't be like overly toxic positive about like, wow, your shot's amazing, but you're like, this looks like garbage. But find something like, wow, you really put a lot of work into this shot. That is awesome to see your progress and your drive. That's really inspiring. Here's something I noticed here. This is an issue with the, you know, then you go on to your feedback, you give some notes, you say like, hey, this is an issue here, here's this, there's that. And then at the end, you sandwich it again with like, overall, like, you're really making good progress in this. I can't wait to see the next pass of it. Like, that's my ideal feedback sandwich of like doing that will also make it easier to give feedback because you kind of know like what you're going to be doing and what you're saying. Now, obviously it's different. Like I'm talking a little bit more in terms of live feedback or talking with someone while you're giving feedback, but it does apply too if you're doing like written notes or something like that. And honestly, feedback is not only something really nice that you can do for someone else that can help them out a ton, but it can also help you out equally, if not more, because I know just since I've been giving like feedback regularly, I have grown a ton as an animator just because it's always makes you rethink your entire animation skills. Because, you know, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I know how to animate a bouncing ball, but it's one other thing to be able to see someone's bouncing ball and tell them exactly what's wrong with it and what principles need to be fixed and give notes on it. It makes you reteach, you know, it's kind of like you can't master something until you can teach it perfectly to someone else. And like, you know, I can't teach anything perfectly, but you know, you always want to try to be better about teaching and catch things more because it will make you a better animator too. So that's one thing to keep in mind with feedback because it just helps everyone. And don't be stingy about feedback. Give it to everyone. If you're scared, you know that it always will be valuable. And start off small. If someone's asking for feedback, you don't have to give them 2 hours worth of notes. If you're scared or feedback's difficult for you or you're trepidatious about it, just give them 2 notes, 1 note. You could just say, hey, the foot's popping here, and they'll appreciate that, you know? But at the same time, like another thing, either you're scared of like giving feedback, or I know some people that sometimes think, oh, I don't want to give feedback because, I want to keep information to myself, or like I don't want people to get ahead of me, or there's a weird competition that I've seen some people get into, which is not the case at all, really, when it comes to animation, because if you want animation to be a single person endeavor, work on your own stuff and have it as a hobby for the rest of your life. And that's fine if that's what you want, but animation is such a team exercise and a team player kind of career that you're not going to get far if you don't know how to work with a team. And really giving people feedback and getting feedback and just that kind of whole, circle of feedback helps everyone bring them up to the same level. And you would much rather have everyone at the same level when you're working in a studio than just to have one person that can fix certain things. You want ideally everyone to be at the same level so you all can succeed and learn and grow from each other. So that's something else just to keep in mind with feedback, because it just helps everyone, and it'll help you as an animator, it'll help other people. And just start off small, give small notes, small feedback, and it just takes time and doing it and practice. Just like animating, it takes time and practice. You start off with a ball bounce, you get eventually to characters or facial performance, you get to body mechanics, you get to all those things. So it's just taking it in bite-sized steps, and eventually that just grows, and it just takes time and practice. So that would be my advice about giving feedback. My little tangent I just went on, but yeah, so that is my advice today. And hopefully this is good for everyone. Hopefully my stream, I just saw that it said I was dropping frames, so hopefully it wasn't too bad for anyone. But yeah, hopefully, does anyone have any more questions or anything? I don't really have time for more feedback today because I have to get back to work actually. But yeah, great work everyone, and I can't wait to see what everyone does next week. So tomorrow, Saturday, yes, we have a interview with Sean Lee, so creator of Kyoshil and amazing animator that was at Disney, now he's at Pixar. So that will be really cool. We get to interview him and talk about his school, talk about rigs, talk about his journey as an animator. If you want to leave questions for him, you can leave it in our Discord in the questions channel, or you can leave it in the Instagram post that we have with John's picture on top of it. Leave questions there. There's even an Insta story, so just anywhere you can put questions. We'll be asking him any of your questions that you have, and also anything extra in the chat that you put that day. So we'd love to hear anything that you have to ask Sean. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you all tomorrow.